911, what's your emergency? The frantic voice on the other end of the line crackled with desperation. My daughter, she's missing. She left the hospital hours ago, and she never came home. The chilling 911 call echoed across the Hartford Police Department, a grim foreshadowing of a mystery that would grip Connecticut for years to come. It was the fall of 1999, a time of dial-up internet, the Y2K scare, and the burgeoning popularity of boy bands. America was on the cusp of a new millennium, blissfully unaware of the darkness that could lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. Hartford, Connecticut, a city steeped in history and known for its insurance industry, was about to become the epicenter of a baffling disappearance. In the heart of this bustling city worked Heather Collins, a dedicated and compassionate nurse at Hartford Hospital. At 28 years old, Heather was described by her friends and family as a bright, energetic woman with a genuine desire to help others. She had a warm smile, an infectious laugh, and a calming presence that made her a favorite among patients and colleagues alike. Her days were filled with the demanding but rewarding work of caring for the sick, offering comfort and healing to those in need. Heather was close to her family, often spending weekends with her parents and siblings. She enjoyed reading, hiking, and spending time with her friends. At the hospital, she was known for her professionalism and her unwavering commitment to her patients. She had a close circle of friends among the nursing staff, with whom she often shared lunch breaks and after-work drinks. Her life was a picture of normalcy, a comforting routine that provided structure and security. This routine made her disappearance all the more shocking and perplexing. On the evening of October 2, 1999, Heather finished her shift at Hartford Hospital. As usual, she clocked out around 11 p.m. and walked towards the employee parking lot. The night was cool and crisp, typical for an autumn evening in New England. She exchanged a few words with a security guard as she passed, a simple, unremarkable interaction. It was the last confirmed sighting of Heather Collins. No one saw anything out of the ordinary. She simply vanished into the night, leaving behind a void that would never truly be filled. The Hartford Police Department launched an immediate investigation. Detectives interviewed Heather's colleagues, friends, and family, meticulously piecing together her last known movements. They canvassed the hospital grounds, the parking lot, and the surrounding streets, searching for any clues that could shed light on her disappearance. A timeline was constructed, detailing Heather's activities in the hours leading up to her vanishing. But despite their best efforts, the initial investigation yielded little in the way of concrete leads. It was as if Heather had simply evaporated into thin air. News of Heather's disappearance sent shockwaves through the Hartford community and the hospital staff. Newspaper headlines screamed of the missing nurse, and local news channels ran constant updates on the investigation. Missing person posters, adorned with Heather's smiling face, were plastered throughout the city. A sense of unease and fear gripped the community, as people wondered how such a thing could happen to someone so well loved and respected. The hospital staff, in particular, were deeply affected by Heather's disappearance. Her colleagues, many of whom were her close friends, struggled to come to terms with the possibility that she might never be found. In the early stages of the investigation, several individuals were questioned as persons of interest. These included a disgruntled former employee of the hospital, a man who had been seen lurking near the parking lot, and even some of Heather's colleagues. However, none of these individuals could be definitively linked to her disappearance, and they were eventually cleared as suspects. The investigation seemed to hit a dead end, leaving investigators and Heather's family increasingly frustrated and desperate for answers. The case of Heather Collins' disappearance was quickly becoming a cold case, a haunting reminder of the unsolved mysteries that can plague even the most seemingly ordinary communities. But the search for Heather was far from over. Before we continue with this gripping story, please subscribe to our channel for updates as we unravel this Connecticut cold case and other mysteries. As weeks turned into months, the initial flurry of activity surrounding Heather's disappearance began to wane. The leads that had once seemed promising evaporated like mist, leaving investigators with a frustrating lack of progress. The case, once a top priority, slowly faded into the background, joining the ranks of other unsolved mysteries that haunted the files of the Hartford Police Department. For the investigators, it was a constant source of frustration. They had exhausted every avenue, followed every lead, and yet they were no closer to finding Heather than they had been on the first day. The lack of closure weighed heavily on them, a constant reminder of their failure to bring Heather home. In the early days of the investigation, forensic evidence was meticulously collected from Heather's car, her locker at the hospital, and the surrounding areas. Fibers, fingerprints, and potential DNA samples were carefully gathered and sent to the state crime lab for analysis. However, in 1999, forensic technology was not as advanced as it is today. DNA analysis was still in its infancy, and the ability to extract usable DNA from degraded or trace samples was limited. As a result, much of the forensic evidence collected in Heather's case proved inconclusive. The limitations of the technology at the time hampered the investigation, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. It was a stark reminder of the challenges faced by law enforcement in the pre-digital age. For Heather's family, the passage of time only deepened their anguish. They refused to give up hope, clinging to the belief that Heather would one day be found. They organized search parties, distributed flyers, and tirelessly contacted local media outlets, keeping Heather's name and face in the public eye. The emotional toll of the unknown was immense. Every phone call, every knock on the door brought a mix of hope and dread. They lived in a constant state of anxiety, never knowing what news the next day might bring. The uncertainty was unbearable, a heavy burden that they carried with them every day. In interviews, they spoke of Heather with love and longing, describing her as a kind, compassionate woman who was deeply missed by everyone who knew her. Their unwavering determination to find Heather served as a powerful reminder of the enduring bonds of family. As the investigation stalled, rumors and speculation began to circulate about Heather's disappearance. Some theorized that she had been the victim of foul play, abducted by a stranger or someone she knew. Others speculated that she had run away, seeking a new life and escaping from some unknown personal troubles. Some even whispered about a possible secret relationship gone wrong. These rumors, fueled by the lack of concrete information, added to the confusion and anxiety surrounding the case. While the police investigated every lead, no matter how far-fetched, none of the rumors ever yielded any credible evidence. They remained just that, rumors, adding to the heartbreak. The emotional and psychological impact of Heather's disappearance rippled far beyond her immediate family. Her colleagues at the hospital struggled to cope with her absence, finding it difficult to focus on their work while haunted by the thought of what might have happened to her. The community as a whole felt a sense of unease, a fear that such a thing could happen to anyone. The sense of security that had once been taken for granted was shattered, replaced by a lingering sense of vulnerability. The disappearance cast a long shadow over Hartford, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly ordinary communities. Both law enforcement and Heather's family made numerous public appeals for information related to the case. Press conferences were held, and the media regularly featured stories about Heather's disappearance, urging anyone with information to come forward. Rewards were offered for tips that led to her discovery, but despite these efforts, no credible leads emerged. The public appeals served as a constant reminder of the ongoing investigation, but they also highlighted the lack of progress and the growing sense of desperation. The silence was deafening, a stark indication of the challenges involved in solving cold cases. The local media played a crucial role in keeping Heather's case in the public eye. Newspapers, television news, and radio stations regularly reported on the investigation, providing updates on any new developments and highlighting the family's continued search for answers. The media coverage helped to raise awareness about Heather's disappearance and to keep the pressure on law enforcement to continue the investigation. However, the media's focus on the case also had its drawbacks. The constant coverage could be overwhelming for Heather's family, and the sensationalized nature of some of the reporting added to their pain and suffering. As the years passed, the case files of Heather Collins gathered dust in the archives of the Hartford Police Department. The investigation had gone cold, with no new leads and no apparent hope of finding Heather. The detectives who had initially worked on the case moved on to other assignments, and Heather's disappearance became a distant memory for many. Yet, for Heather's family, the pain of her absence remained as fresh as the day she disappeared. They never gave up hope, clinging to the belief that one day, somehow, they would finally learn the truth about what happened to Heather. The cold case was far from closed in their hearts. But as time marched on, a beacon of hope began to glimmer on the horizon. New technology was emerging, particularly in the field of forensic science, that promised to breathe new life into cold cases like Heather's. Advancements in DNA analysis, in particular, were revolutionizing the way crimes were investigated, offering the possibility of extracting usable DNA from even the most degraded or trace samples. This technological leap forward offered a renewed sense of optimism for investigators and families alike, a chance to finally solve mysteries that had long remained shrouded in darkness. The possibility of bringing closure to these long unsolved cases was a powerful motivator, driving innovation and investment in forensic science. Recognizing the potential of these new technologies, the Connecticut State Police established a dedicated cold case unit. This specialized team of detectives was tasked with re-examining unsolved disappearances and homicides, utilizing the latest forensic techniques to uncover new leads and bring perpetrators to justice. The formation of the cold case unit was a significant step forward in the fight against unsolved crime, providing a dedicated resource for investigating cases that had long been forgotten. The team was composed of experienced detectives with a passion for solving complex mysteries, driven by a commitment to bringing closure to victims and their families. One of the first cases to be revisited by the Connecticut Cold Case Unit was the disappearance of Heather Collins. Detectives meticulously gathered all the original evidence from the case, including photographs, witness statements, and forensic samples. They carefully reviewed the original investigation, identifying any potential leads that may have been overlooked or dismissed at the time. The team approached the case with fresh eyes, determined to leave no stone unturned in their search for the truth. They understood the importance of thoroughness and attention to detail, recognizing that even the smallest piece of evidence could hold the key to solving the mystery. A key piece of evidence that was re-examined was a small piece of fabric found in Heather's car. This seemingly insignificant item had been collected during the initial investigation, but the technology at the time was not advanced enough to determine its origin or significance. However, with the advancements in forensic science, the cold case unit was able to subject the fabric to a more sophisticated analysis. The fibers were examined under a powerful microscope, and their composition and structure were carefully analyzed. The results of this analysis revealed that the fibers were consistent with a specific type of material used in the manufacture of work uniforms. This seemingly small clue opened up a new avenue of investigation, leading detectives to focus on individuals who may have had access to such uniforms. The significance of this piece of evidence was a testament to the power of forensic science and the importance of preserving even the smallest details. Developments in DNA analysis played a crucial role in the renewed investigation. Techniques such as mitochondrial DNA analysis and touch DNA analysis allowed investigators to extract DNA from samples that were previously considered unusable. Mitochondrial DNA analysis, which focuses on DNA found in the mitochondria of cells, can be used to identify individuals even when only degraded or small amounts of DNA are available. Touch DNA analysis, on the other hand, allows investigators to extract DNA from skin cells left behind when someone touches an object. These advancements greatly expanded the scope of DNA analysis, enabling investigators to identify potential suspects from even the most challenging samples. The application of these techniques to the evidence in Heather's case offered a renewed hope of identifying her abductor. As a result of the re-examination of evidence and the advancements in DNA analysis, the cold case unit was able to expand the pool of potential suspects. They began to focus on individuals who had not been considered during the initial investigation, including former employees of the hospital, individuals with a history of violence, and those who lived or worked in the vicinity of the hospital. Each new potential suspect was subjected to a thorough background check, and their movements around the time of Heather's disappearance were carefully scrutinized. The investigation became more complex and far-reaching, as the detectives worked to piece together the puzzle and identify the person responsible for Heather's abduction. In addition to traditional investigative techniques, the cold case unit also utilized geographic profiling to narrow down potential suspect locations. Geographic profiling is a technique that analyzes the locations of crime scenes to identify the most probable area of residence for the offender. By mapping the locations of where Heather was last seen, the cold case unit was able to create a geographic profile of the potential suspect, narrowing their search to a specific area within Hartford. This technique proved to be a valuable tool in focusing the investigation and prioritizing potential suspects. As the investigation progressed and the cold case unit closed in on a potential suspect, a sense of rising tension began to permeate the atmosphere. Detectives worked tirelessly, driven by a sense of urgency and a determination to bring Heather home. The weight of the unsolved mystery hung heavy in the air, fueling their resolve to uncover the truth. The possibility of finally solving the case after so many years created a palpable sense of anticipation and excitement, but also a deep sense of responsibility. They knew that the lives of Heather's family and friends hung in the balance, and they were determined to deliver justice. The renewed focus of the investigation soon centered on a man named Neil Eskison. Eskison had a peripheral connection to Hartford Hospital, working as a delivery driver who frequently made rounds dropping off supplies. He wasn't a doctor, nurse, or even a regular employee, but his presence within the hospital walls was consistent, and he was a familiar face to many. This familiarity, however, masked a darker side that would eventually be brought to light. Initially, Eskison hadn't been on the radar. He wasn't considered a prime suspect, his link to Heather being too tenuous. But as the cold case unit meticulously re-examined every detail, Eskison's name resurfaced, flagged due to his proximity to the hospital and the unusual nature of his delivery routes. Eskison's background was unremarkable on the surface. He was a middle-aged man, a high school dropout with a string of minor offenses on his record: petty theft, traffic violations, nothing that screamed violent offender. He lived a solitary life in a rundown apartment on the outskirts of Hartford, with few friends or family. He kept to himself, a quiet, almost invisible presence in the community. But beneath the veneer of normalcy lurked a troubled past, a history of instability and a propensity for erratic behavior. He had a reputation for being difficult to work with, often clashing with supervisors and coworkers. There were whispers of a volatile temper and a tendency to make inappropriate comments towards women. The critical piece of evidence that tied Eskison to Heather's disappearance was the fiber analysis. The fibers found in Heather's car matched the material used in the uniforms worn by the delivery drivers who worked for the supply company that employed Eskison. While not conclusive on its own, this forensic link placed Eskison squarely in the frame. It suggested he had been in Heather's car, and he had no legitimate reason to be there. This discovery was the breakthrough the cold case unit had been searching for, the crucial piece of the puzzle that began to bring the picture into focus. It transformed Eskison from a person of interest into a prime suspect. Building a solid case against Eskison required painstaking effort. The cold case unit launched a full-scale investigation, delving into every aspect of his life. They interviewed his former coworkers, neighbors, and acquaintances, piecing together a detailed portrait of his character and his activities around the time of Heather's disappearance. They scoured his apartment, searching for any additional evidence that could link him to the crime. Financial records, phone logs, and travel histories were all meticulously examined. The detectives knew that circumstantial evidence alone would not be enough to secure a conviction. They needed to build an airtight case, one that would withstand the scrutiny of the courtroom. Surveillance became a key component of the investigation. Detectives discreetly monitored Eskison's movements, tracking his every step. They observed his interactions with others, his daily routines, and any unusual behavior. They wanted to understand his habits, his patterns, and any potential vulnerabilities. The surveillance team used a variety of techniques, from traditional stakeouts to sophisticated electronic monitoring. They were patient and persistent, knowing that the key to unlocking the mystery lay in observing Eskison's actions. As the surveillance intensified, Eskison began to exhibit increasingly unusual behavior. He became more withdrawn and secretive, avoiding contact with others. He changed his routines, taking different routes to work and varying his hours. He seemed to be constantly looking over his shoulder, as if he knew he was being watched. These changes in behavior raised red flags for the investigators, confirming their suspicions that he was hiding something. His anxiety was palpable, a clear indication that he was feeling the pressure of the investigation. This unusual behavior solidified the detectives' conviction that they were on the right track. The cold case unit meticulously planned the arrest. They understood the importance of a well-executed operation, one that would minimize the risk of violence and ensure that Eskison was taken into custody without incident. The arrest team consisted of experienced officers, trained in handling high-pressure situations. They developed a detailed plan, outlining every aspect of the operation, from the location of the arrest to the procedures for securing the scene. The detectives knew that the success of the investigation hinged on a flawless arrest. As the investigation reached its climax, a palpable sense of suspense filled the air. The detectives knew they were on the verge of either solving a years-old mystery or facing another dead end. The stakes were high, and the pressure was immense. Every piece of evidence, every interview, every observation had led them to this moment. The culmination of their efforts was about to unfold, and the truth about what happened to Heather Collins was finally within reach. The tension was almost unbearable, a heavy weight that hung over the entire cold case unit. The next few hours would determine the fate of the investigation and the future of Heather's family. The day arrived with a cold, overcast sky, mirroring the somber mood of the detectives preparing to bring Neil Eskison into custody. At precisely 6 a.m., as Eskison emerged from his apartment building, a swarm of unmarked police vehicles converged, effectively boxing him in. There was no escape. Eskison, visibly startled, raised his hands in the air as officers, weapons drawn but holstered, approached him. The arrest was swift and uneventful. He was read his Miranda rights and placed in the back of a patrol car, his face a mask of stunned disbelief. The quiet of the early morning was shattered by the wail of sirens as the convoy transported him to the Hartford Police Department for interrogation. The interrogation room was sterile and impersonal, a small space with a metal table and 2 chairs under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. Eskison was left alone for a few minutes, allowing the gravity of the situation to sink in. When the detectives entered, they were met with a nervous, fidgety man. He avoided eye contact, his hands trembling slightly. The lead detective, a seasoned interrogator named Detective Harding, began with routine questions, establishing Eskison's identity and confirming his understanding of his rights. Eskison answered cautiously, his voice barely above a whisper. He claimed to be confused and unsure why he was being detained. Initially, Eskison maintained a facade of innocence, feigning ignorance about Heather Collins and her disappearance. He stated that he vaguely remembered her from his deliveries to the hospital, but insisted that he had never spoken to her or interacted with her in any meaningful way. He portrayed himself as a hardworking, ordinary man who was being unfairly targeted. His demeanor was calm and controlled, but the detectives noticed subtle signs of nervousness, a slight twitch in his eye, a constant fidgeting with his fingers. He was trying too hard to appear innocent, a classic telltale sign of deception. As the interrogation progressed, the detectives began to present the evidence they had gathered. They started with the fiber analysis, explaining how the fibers found in Heather's car matched the uniforms worn by delivery drivers from Eskison's company. Eskison's composure faltered slightly. He stammered, claiming that the fibers could have come from anywhere, that he often brushed against cars while making his deliveries. Detective Harding calmly countered that the specific type of fiber was relatively rare, and the probability of it being transferred randomly was exceedingly low. Eskison shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his initial confidence beginning to erode. The detectives then presented Eskison with a timeline of his movements around the time of Heather's disappearance, highlighting inconsistencies and gaps in his alibi. They pointed out that his delivery route on the night in question took him near the employee parking lot where Heather was last seen, despite there being no logical reason for him to be in that area. Eskison's story began to unravel. He changed his account several times, offering increasingly implausible explanations for his whereabouts. The detectives pressed him relentlessly, exposing the contradictions and weaknesses in his alibi. The pressure was mounting, and Eskison was starting to crack. The breaking point came when the detectives presented Eskison with a photograph of Heather Collins, her smiling face a stark contrast to the grim reality of her disappearance. They asked him directly, "Did you kill Heather Collins?" Eskison's eyes welled up with tears. He began to tremble uncontrollably. He mumbled incoherently, denying any involvement. But then, he paused, his voice cracking with emotion. He confessed. He admitted that he had been infatuated with Heather, that he had been watching her for weeks. On that fateful night, he had confronted her in the parking lot, hoping to talk to her. When she rejected him, he snapped. In a fit of rage, he attacked her, silencing her forever. Eskison recounted the horrific details of Heather's murder, describing how he had disposed of her body in a remote wooded area outside of Hartford. His confession was chilling and matter-of-fact, devoid of remorse or empathy. He spoke of his actions as if they were a regrettable but unavoidable consequence of his unrequited obsession. He detailed how he meticulously cleaned Heather's car to remove any trace of his presence. As he spoke, the detectives listened intently, documenting every word. The news of Eskison's arrest and confession sent shockwaves through Heather's family. After years of agonizing uncertainty, they finally had answers. The detectives personally delivered the news to Heather's parents, who were overcome with a mixture of grief, relief, and anger. They had waited so long for this moment, and while it brought a sense of closure, it also reopened old wounds. The pain of losing Heather was still raw, but now they knew the truth. They knew who was responsible for her death, and they knew that justice would finally be served. While Eskison's confession brought a partial sense of closure, the search for Heather's remains now took center stage. The confession provided the details needed to hopefully provide a full sense of closure. Based on Eskison's confession, a massive search effort was launched to locate Heather's remains. The search area, a sprawling expanse of dense woodland several miles outside of Hartford, presented significant challenges. The terrain was rugged and uneven, and the thick vegetation made visibility difficult. The detectives assembled a team of search and rescue experts, cadaver dogs, and forensic anthropologists, all working in coordination to comb the area. They meticulously divided the search zone into smaller grids, ensuring that every inch was thoroughly examined. The search was painstaking and time-consuming, but the detectives were driven by the hope of bringing Heather home and providing her family with the opportunity to give her a proper burial. After several days of intense searching, the cadaver dogs alerted to a specific area deep within the woods. The detectives carefully excavated the site, and their hearts sank as they unearthed skeletal remains. The discovery was both a triumph and a tragedy. It confirmed Eskison's confession, but it also brought the full weight of Heather's death crashing down upon them. The remains were carefully collected and transported to the medical examiner's office for forensic examination. The discovery was a pivotal moment in the investigation, solidifying the case against Eskison and bringing a sense of closure to Heather's family. The forensic examination of Heather's remains confirmed her identity through dental records and DNA analysis. The examination also revealed evidence of blunt force trauma to the skull, consistent with Eskison's confession. The forensic anthropologists were able to reconstruct the events leading up to Heather's death, providing valuable insights into the crime scene. The examination also helped to rule out any other potential causes of death, further solidifying the case against Eskison. The forensic evidence was a critical component of the prosecution's case, providing irrefutable proof of Eskison's guilt. As the investigation delved deeper into Eskison's background, a clearer picture of his motive for killing Heather began to emerge. It was revealed that Eskison had a long history of stalking and harassing women. He had a pattern of becoming infatuated with women he barely knew, showering them with unwanted attention and becoming angry and resentful when they rejected him. His obsession with Heather was simply the culmination of this long-standing pattern of behavior. He saw her as an object of desire, someone to be possessed and controlled. When she refused his advances, his fragile ego shattered, and he lashed out in a fit of rage. His motive was rooted in a deep-seated sense of entitlement and a complete lack of respect for women. Based on Eskison's confession and the forensic evidence, investigators were able to reconstruct the crime scene. They determined that Eskison had ambushed Heather in the hospital parking lot, forcing her into her car. He then drove her to the remote wooded area where he murdered her and disposed of her body. The reconstruction of the crime scene provided a chilling glimpse into the events of that fateful night. It highlighted the brutality of Eskison's actions and the meticulous planning that went into covering up his crime. The reconstruction helped to piece together the final moments of Heather's life, providing a clearer understanding of the tragedy that had unfolded. The community's reaction to Eskison's confession was one of shock, grief, and outrage. People were horrified to learn the details of Heather's murder and the extent of Eskison's depravity. The confession reopened old wounds, reminding the community of the pain and uncertainty they had endured for so many years. Vigils were held in Heather's memory, and people gathered to express their grief and support for her family. The community demanded justice for Heather, calling for Eskison to be held accountable for his heinous crime. The confession served as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly ordinary communities. Following Eskison's confession, initial legal proceedings began swiftly. He was arraigned on charges of murder and kidnapping, and bail was set at an exorbitant amount, ensuring that he would remain in custody throughout the trial. His initial court appearance was met with a throng of reporters and angry protesters, all demanding justice for Heather. The legal process was set in motion, promising a long and arduous journey towards holding Eskison accountable for his actions. The public outcry in Heather's case was deafening. People from all walks of life rallied in support of her family and demanded that Eskison receive the maximum punishment allowed by law. Petitions were circulated, protests were organized, and social media was flooded with messages of outrage and condemnation. The public's demand for justice reflected a deep-seated desire to see those who commit heinous crimes held accountable for their actions. The outcry served as a powerful reminder of the importance of the legal system and the need to ensure that justice is served for victims of crime and their families. The trial of Neil Eskison was a highly publicized event, dominating local news and capturing the attention of the entire state of Connecticut. The courtroom was packed each day, filled with Heather's family, friends, and concerned members of the community, all eager to witness justice being served. The atmosphere was thick with tension, as the prosecution and defense teams battled fiercely over the evidence and testimony. Key events included the emotional testimonies of Heather's loved ones, the presentation of damning forensic evidence, and the intense cross-examination of Eskison himself. The prosecution's case was meticulously crafted, built upon the foundation of Eskison's confession and the overwhelming forensic evidence. They presented a clear and compelling narrative, tracing Eskison's obsession with Heather, his opportunity to abduct her, and the physical evidence linking him to the crime scene. The prosecution team called numerous witnesses, including forensic scientists, police officers, and Heather's friends and family, each providing crucial pieces of the puzzle. Their strategy was to paint a picture of Eskison as a calculating and predatory individual, driven by a desire for control and willing to commit unspeakable acts to satisfy his twisted desires. The defense team, led by a seasoned criminal attorney, employed a strategy of casting doubt on the evidence and attacking the credibility of the prosecution's witnesses. They argued that Eskison's confession was coerced, obtained through aggressive interrogation tactics. They challenged the validity of the forensic evidence, questioning the accuracy of the DNA analysis and the reliability of the fiber identification. The defense attempted to portray Eskison as a mentally unstable individual, suggesting that his confession was the product of a disturbed mind, not a conscious act of guilt. Expert witnesses played a crucial role in the trial, providing technical and scientific testimony to support both the prosecution and the defense. Forensic scientists testified about the DNA evidence, explaining the statistical probability of the DNA match and the procedures used to ensure the accuracy of the results. Psychologists were called to offer their opinions on Eskison's mental state, with the prosecution arguing that he was sane and capable of understanding his actions, while the defense claimed he suffered from a mental disorder that impaired his judgment. The expert testimony added a layer of complexity to the trial, forcing the jury to grapple with complex scientific concepts and competing expert opinions. The emotional testimony of Heather's family members and friends was one of the most heart-wrenching aspects of the trial. They spoke of Heather's kindness, her compassion, and the devastating impact of her loss. Her parents recounted their years of agonizing uncertainty, their unwavering hope that she would one day be found, and the crushing blow of learning the truth about her fate. Her friends shared stories of her infectious laughter, her unwavering loyalty, and the void that she had left in their lives. Their testimony brought tears to the eyes of many in the courtroom, humanizing Heather and reminding the jury of the profound loss suffered by those who loved her. After weeks of testimony and evidence presentation, the jury was tasked with the weighty responsibility of deliberating and reaching a verdict. They were sequestered in a private room, cut off from the outside world, and instructed to carefully consider all the evidence presented during the trial. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the hours ticked by, with everyone anxiously awaiting the jury's decision. Speculation ran rampant, with legal experts and members of the media offering their predictions about the outcome of the trial. Finally, after days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The courtroom fell silent as the jury foreperson announced the decision, guilty on all counts. A collective gasp swept through the room as Heather's family erupted in tears of relief and gratitude. Eskison sat motionless, his face betraying no emotion as the verdict was read. The weight of his guilt had finally caught up with him, and he would now face the consequences of his actions. Justice had finally been served for Heather Collins. The verdict in Heather's case had a significant impact on the legal system in Connecticut. It highlighted the importance of cold case units and the role they play in bringing closure to unsolved crimes. The case also underscored the advancements in forensic science and the power of DNA analysis to identify perpetrators even years after the crime. The successful prosecution of Eskison served as a deterrent to other potential offenders and reaffirmed the commitment of law enforcement to pursue justice, no matter how long it takes. The case also led to discussions about the need for improved support services for families of missing persons, recognizing the unique challenges they face and the importance of providing them with resources and assistance. Following the guilty verdict, the sentencing hearing for Neil Eskison was set. The atmosphere in the courtroom was heavy, charged with a mix of anticipation and somber reflection. Heather's family and friends gathered once more, bracing themselves for the final chapter of this long and painful ordeal. Eskison, now stripped of any pretense of innocence, sat passively as the judge prepared to pronounce his punishment. The sentencing hearing began with statements from the prosecution and the defense. The prosecution argued vehemently for the maximum sentence, emphasizing the heinous nature of Eskison's crime, the devastating impact on Heather's family, and the need to protect society from such a dangerous individual. They highlighted the premeditation involved in the murder, Eskison's history of stalking and harassing women, and his complete lack of remorse. The defense, in a final attempt to mitigate the sentence, pleaded for leniency, arguing that Eskison suffered from mental health issues and that his actions were the result of a troubled past. They presented testimony from a psychiatrist who claimed that Eskison was not fully responsible for his actions due to his diminished mental capacity. The most poignant moment of the sentencing hearing was the family impact statement delivered by Heather's mother. With tears streaming down her face, she spoke of the immeasurable pain and suffering that Eskison had inflicted upon her family. She described Heather as a loving, compassionate, and vibrant young woman whose life had been cruelly cut short. She spoke of the years of uncertainty and anguish, the constant hope that Heather would one day be found, and the devastation of learning the truth about her fate. Her voice trembled with emotion as she addressed Eskison directly, expressing her outrage and demanding that he be held accountable for his actions. Her words resonated deeply with everyone in the courtroom, driving home the human cost of Eskison's crime. After hearing arguments from both sides and considering the family impact statement, the judge delivered his sentence. He spoke of the gravity of the crime, the senselessness of the violence, and the devastating impact on Heather's family and the community. He acknowledged Eskison's mental health issues but emphasized that they did not excuse his actions. He sentenced Eskison to life in prison without the possibility of parole, the maximum sentence allowed by law. The judge stated that this sentence was necessary to ensure that Eskison would never again pose a threat to society, and to send a clear message that such heinous crimes would not be tolerated. The question of whether justice was truly served in Heather's case is a complex one. While Eskison was held accountable for his actions and her family finally found closure, the pain of Heather's loss would never truly disappear. No sentence could ever fully compensate for the life that was taken, the dreams that were shattered, and the profound grief that was inflicted. Justice, in its purest form, remained elusive, a reminder of the limitations of the legal system in addressing the complexities of human tragedy. The emotional scars would remain, a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. Heather Collins' lasting legacy is one of kindness, compassion, and resilience. She is remembered by her friends and family as a loving and devoted daughter, sister, and friend. Her dedication to her profession as a nurse, her unwavering commitment to her patients, and her genuine desire to help others left a lasting impact on the lives of those she touched. Her story serves as a reminder of the importance of cherishing the people we love and of standing up against violence and injustice. Her memory continues to inspire others to live with kindness, compassion, and a commitment to making the world a better place. The successful resolution of Heather's case highlights the vital role of cold case units in bringing closure to unsolved crimes and families. These dedicated teams of investigators, armed with advanced forensic technologies and a relentless determination, are able to breathe new life into cases that have long been forgotten. Their work provides hope for families who have been left in limbo, offering the possibility of finally learning the truth about what happened to their loved ones and bringing the perpetrators to justice. The existence of cold case units serves as a testament to the enduring power of hope and the unwavering commitment of law enforcement to pursue justice, no matter how long it takes. Heather Collins was more than just a victim. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a nurse, and a vibrant member of her community. Her life was tragically cut short, but her memory will live on in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. Her story serves as a reminder of the importance of cherishing every moment and of standing up against violence and injustice. She will never be forgotten. Reflecting on the complexities of this case, one is struck by the enduring power of hope and the resilience of the human spirit. Despite the passage of time, the challenges of the investigation, and the pain of loss, Heather's family never gave up on their quest for justice. Their unwavering determination, coupled with the dedication of law enforcement, ultimately led to the resolution of the case and the apprehension of her killer. The story of Heather Collins serves as a testament to the importance of perseverance, the power of hope, and the enduring human capacity for love and forgiveness. Thank you for watching this in-depth exploration of the Heather Collins case. If you found this video informative and engaging, please subscribe to our channel for more true crime mysteries and cold case investigations. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on the case. Share this video to help raise awareness about other cold cases and missing persons. Check out our other videos on similar cold cases for more true crime content.